Hey everybody, with 2025 finished, this is what I watched in January. At the end of December, I took a trip to Japan for the first time ever, and it's easily one of the best experiences I've ever had. It's seriously unreal. Anyway, on the way back during that 13-hour flight, I came across this movie that I had on my radar up until its release, and I just never had a chance to watch it. But I mean, I was excited to finally see it since it stars Margot Robbie and Colin Farrell, two of the best actors currently working, so surely it was gonna be great. Wrong. Damn it, I thought this was gonna be a great film that would have an insane amount of chemistry between the two actors since they are so charming and magnetic. Like, even when they play villain roles, they are still so likable. Unfortunately, quite literally everything fell flat. The character arcs were pretty weak, the chemistry was alright, but it's miles away from something like La La Land. And the gall this movie has to try and evoke a similarity to Umbrellas of Cherbourg was criminal behavior. Yes, the colors are beautiful, yes, the cast is extremely attractive, but there was just such little substance in this, and it just felt like these characters weren't real people. It felt like this was just all a stand-in for one giant metaphor. It was severely missing heart. Like, it wasn't offensively bad or anything, but it just, what a waste with these two great actors to create something truly awesome. Then on that same plane, I watched Legally Blonde for the first time, since some of those quintessential early 2000s rom-coms are kind of a blind spot for me. Yeah, I see the hype behind this one though. I wasn't surprised that Reese Witherspoon was fantastic in the film. She's so clever and spunky and funny while never feeling like a caricature or a symbol rather than an actual person. I loved seeing Jennifer Coolidge and Luke Wilson being as lovable as ever, and it was even a real treat to see Oz Perkins in this movie. The idea that this very gray world of Harvard gets an injection of the pop of color that's Elle Woods made for some fun scenarios. I think honestly the Weinstein-esque scenario did feel shoehorned in, since really there was enough conflict in the story to not need it, but that's whatever. I'll also say for the most part, the comedy works for me. Like, some of the stereotyping did feel very insensitive, but that's unfortunately just a product of its time. Overall, it's a solid film. Then I watched Primate as one of the first horror films of the year, and considering January doesn't have a great track record for horror releases, I was pleasantly surprised with this movie. It's not a perfect movie, and honestly, it gets dragged down by a villain of the horror genre, dumb decision making. Some of these characters are incomprehensibly stupid. Get him in the water. But despite the stupidity, I really enjoyed this flick. There's some good gore, and it'll happen in moments where your guard is down, so that's always fun, and luckily, because none of these characters are likable, anytime it happens, you're rooting for it to happen. I still wish there was a more concise exploration on the estrangement of the sisters, and some of the things that were introduced were never really put to use in this story, so it kinda makes it feel like none of that was actually necessary. But most of all, I wish Lucy was the true hero of this story, because as it stands, her dad came in clutch and bailed her out, and it kinda didn't let her have her true moment at the end. To me, at least, his interruptions kind of messed up the idea of her being a new modern final girl, and that would have been really cool to see. But as is, she's no Sienna Shaw. Then I watched Castle in the Sky. Over the past couple of months, I've been trying to watch all the Ghibli movies that I haven't seen that's not Spirited Away, and I've been really enjoying them and appreciating them for the art that they are. My god, I'm amazed at how unbelievably gorgeous each film looks, and these aren't 80-minute movies like most modern animated films are. Some of these are over 2 hours long, and most importantly, they earn their runtime. With that being said though, this was the most middle of the road for me so far. Like, to be honest, every Ghibli film I've seen so far feels so distinct and unique, but like, if you've never watched a Ghibli film and just try to imagine what one would be like, that's exactly what you get with Castle in the Sky. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, it's just nothing about it stood out to me personally. It's a fine little adventure with cool golems, but I really wish we would have gotten to know more about the titular Castle in the Sky. What was their people like? What was life like up there? Was rainwater their main source of hydration? What did they have for protein? I liked it fine enough, but I'm not crazy about hitting replay on it anytime soon. Marty Supreme is oof, it's a movie that has the sauce. I made a video dedicated to it already, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but god damn is this movie exciting, and it's Timmy at the top of his game, which is insane when you think of all the other movies he's already made. I kept thinking about this movie way after having watched it, and it just gets better the more I think about it. Josh Safdie really is a madman for being able to condense this much insanity and excitement into a film. I love this movie, and if you've watched it, you probably feel the same way about it, so I don't really need to sell you on it. Then I watched 28 years later, The Bone Temple. This is Nia DaCosta making it known to the world to not judge her based off of the Marvels. This movie rocks. Ralph Fiennes just keeps proving how he's one of the best actors of modern cinema, and we should all be grateful that we are able to keep witnessing the man put in masterpiece after masterpiece. I also made a video for this one, but being a person that was apprehensive about this one, since to be honest I wasn't in love with the overall frame that was the previous film, I ended up loving this one so much that the last movie was recontextualized and made me see it in a much better light. I'm fully stoked to see the next entry, and I'm excited to see where the story goes because of how many pieces on the chessboard still have unfinished important storylines. Please nail the landing. Then I watched Train Dreams, and I was not ready for this film. By the time the credits roll, you'll find yourself needing a hug from how shattered you are, but it also fabricates a tender and somber sensation where you're also at peace with the conclusion of the odyssey that is this film. Joel Edgerton is an amazing performer. I beg, please watch The Gift if you haven't already. Train Dreams is up for a couple of awards, and it's not gonna win Best Picture, but it's got a real shot at Best Cinematography and Best Original Song. It's really a sleeper in a sense because the film for the most part is pretty subdued and passive, except when it's not, and the hurt hurts like hell in this movie. I feel like this movie perfectly executes what it must feel like to have a dagger slowly puncture the body. Like, none of this is fast and easy. In fact, it's mostly focusing on the slowness of it all. There's a moment where Robert is at the center of the abyss and he utters those 4 words that legit felt like a nuke went off. Him uttering "they're not coming back" is the stuff of nightmares. Does he ultimately go insane, especially with his visitation? Who knows? But even behind all the ugly, there was so much beauty in this film. It's just about holding on to something through the bad. Then I watched They Live, a John Carpenter essential, and it was a pretty cool watch. Being a first time watch, I don't know why I assumed it was gonna be so much more sci-fi than what it was. Like, look at this cover. The film is pretty grounded for the majority of the runtime. It's got good chemistry between Frank and John, and of course it put a big ol' smile on my face whenever I saw Keith David return as part of John's crew from The Thing. It is a bummer when you see the special features and Keith David talks about how virtually no opportunities came from The Thing. Like, despite it tanking at first, it is sad to see that the movie is objectively one of the best movies of all time. It didn't give him a second chance. Anyway, this movie is solid. The big fight sequence was cool and borderline hilarious because of how many rounds it felt like they went. Roddy Piper really brought in his wrestling experience into the fray because the athleticism on screen was really awesome. In general, I loved the satire behind the little people metaphorically letting the rich people take control of the steering wheel because if they succeed, so do the little people. Yeah, right. The visuals were really creative, flickering between black and white and color, and the text being on the nose was pretty funny. And most importantly, I liked that while you can argue it's a hero's journey, it's ambiguous, and ultimately it's not a happy ending since both heroes do die. The film has really impressive subliminal messaging that still resonates to this day. He's literally giving the middle finger to those that seek power through manipulation and misinformation. Good job, sir. Then I watched Moonlight. What an impressive feat to create something as vulnerable and horrifying as it is impactful and resonant. While the film clearly has specific themes it's talking about, I truly believe that all people can, to a certain extent, understand the isolation that life can inevitably create. It's extremely difficult to talk about a movie like this since, to be honest, I don't feel equipped to speak on its behalf, but I can just say how genuinely impressive this movie is. The performances borderline convinced me this wasn't even acting anymore with how raw it felt. The unrest of these characters, and even identifying each aged version as a different name. Little, Sharon, and Black, it's truly brilliant. And its ending even left me with a nihilistic taste where ultimately Black, despite having his own set of character traits and support system that truly wanted to help, ended up repeating the cycle because he couldn't break the chain, and that's the true tragedy of this film. It really does feel like a movie that should be shown in school. Warfare was my next watch, and thank God this one actually worked because Alex Garland had me so upset with how lackluster Civil War was. This movie has the sauce. It's based on a real life incident where these gentlemen are basically stuck in this house waiting for backup and most importantly rescue since many of them are injured. This movie was so damn stressful. Joseph Quinn is a certified modern scream king, and seeing Will Poulter and Charles Melton is always a win. I loved the bond these boys demonstrated throughout the runtime. Them just goofing around right outside of a house that they haven't even cleared yet was so outrageous, yet you understand it when you realize this is the last time they can experience joy for the next unforeseeable future. The visuals in this thing kick a lot of ass too, and the show of force moments were always cool to see. Overall, one of the most realistic and brutal depictions of warfare I've ever seen, considering I've never actually experienced it. Then I watched the classic that everyone and their mother has already seen, but I've been severely late on. When Harry Met Sally. I watched it for the first time and it's great. I mean, literally everyone knows this about this movie. It's just another example of Rob Reiner's immense talent to be able to hop between genres so seamlessly. Like, go figure, the guy that made Misery, one of the best horror thrillers of all time, also made one of the best rom-com movies of all time. I'm such a sucker for films that explore various ages of characters because it understands the viewer's desire to know what would this character be like in 10 years or 20 years from now. Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan are sensational in this movie, movie, and while they can be a bit more cynical than most other couples, I still bought their chemistry. That being said, I don't buy Harry wanting to only be friends with Sally. You do realize that's Meg Ryan, right? It's one of the late 80s biggest cinematic lies. Then I watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which has always had a special place in my heart. The Kyoto brothers worked together to make this charming little film that ultimately ended up being one of the best B-movies ever made in my opinion. Like, once you get past the awkward dialogue, silly acting, and Grant Kramer yelling out his lines even in moments that had no need for yelling, there's so many iconic sequences, animatronics that impress to this very day, and of course, the iconic ragtag team of clowns. I love how dedicated the Kyoto brothers were in implementing as many clown gags as possible into the horror of the movie. The balloon dog chase, the popcorn gun, Shorty with his gloves, all of it is so fun. Honestly, getting to see the special features on this thing made me kinda sad because it really did feel like the Kyoto brothers still had so much more left in the tank. We never got a continuation of the film, but it really does feel like the Kyoto brothers still have hope that they'd be able to make another movie. You never know, it might happen. And the last movie I watched was Sam Raimi's Send Help. I just recently did a review for this film, so you could check it out if you'd like, but I had a great time with this movie. Yes, it's absurd, yes, it's too messy towards the end, especially with the whole Triangle of Sadness similarity, and yes, despite her acting prowess, Rachel McAdams can never sell being ugly, because obviously not. All that in mind, it's a solid horror movie that still showcases why Raimi is such a good director. His ability to have this silly yet simple premise and create so much catharsis is next level. It's such a fun revenge tale that ultimately has plenty of rewatch value. It's not one of his best, obviously, but it's a solid movie for Raimi. And that's it, that's everything I watched. Did you watch any of these? What did you watch? Let me know. But that's it for me. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, and sincerely yours, Anthony.